Hello everyone. So I actually been getting a lot of feedbacks on a lot of comments about my UI. And someone actually asked me if I couldn't make a video going a little bit through how I created my UI and what kind of thought process I went through. So I thought that sounds like a great idea. So in this video, I'm gonna talk a little about what is my UA like? How did I create it, and what was my thought process through it? As well as I also look at the add-ons that pull the whole thing together. So yeah, I'm gonna show off my UI here on my Evoker, and let's get right into it. So creating my UI is something that took many tries, and I started off with Elf UI and Shadowlands, sat down and spent a lot of time really figuring out how to get the perfect one for me. And that's also a huge takeaway from this, is that every UI is super personalized. You can just, from this video, just straight up copy mine, and that's totally fine. But I would actually really advise you to try and make your own, because what works for me might not necessarily work for you, or maybe you want to change some things, and so definitely feel free to do it. So with my UI, I basically have two things I'm going after. Number one, I'm trying to create a square here in the middle with my character, which is clear, which is not cluttered by a lot of information, a lot of stuff, but it's visible, right? If I go into combat here, you'll see my full UI going up with the Weakauras, but I'm still have put it down a little bit. So I have this little character square right here where I can see everything that's going on. And maybe more importantly, I can see swirlies, if I'm standing on them. Now the other rule is basically just a question of how much information do you need on your screen. So let's get right into it. First of all, with my UI, you can see here, I still have my action bars. I have them reduced in size, around 90%. You can see here the numbers. I have 3, where I put up all my different abilities. And the reason I have it still visible is simply just because I like to see outside of combat. I like to keep my screen clear when I'm not in combat, and I like to see when my abilities are coming back up. So I still have them on. But if I go into combat, you see I'm using my Weakauras here, and this is where my eyes will be at. Now another thing with the action bars you might have noticed is over here, I have I have consumables, I have some toys, a heartstone, and my mounts. As soon as I go into combat, that disappears, because, well, you don't need that information, so why even have it? And the way to actually do this is you go into edit mode, you click on the action bar that you want to highlight, and here is just bar visible, and you can just choose when you want it visible. Now the next part here is the character profile, which is of course really important. And the placement of this character profile is basically just to know where your eyes are gonna be, because you want to know with your own health and stuff like that. And as I mentioned before, my eyes are around here with the character screen, right? If I go on full mode over, my eyes will be in this square right here. I will have my eyes on the nameplates. I will have my eyes down here on my character, and I want it on the Weakauras. So it makes sense to have something that's quite always in my vision. So this is why I put it here, and I made the frame 135% bigger, just so I can always always see a glance of how much health I have. But I actually made the targeted profile here smaller, simply because, well, using the health on the nameplates to, instead of looking here. So I actually don't need it that big. Now, right over my character profile, you can see right here, I actually ended up putting the debuffs, and I actually made the icon bigger. Now, I really like the debuffs here, because it actually, again, as I mentioned before, I will be able to see all of the debuffs going off, right? I will be able to very clearly see when I have something nasty on me. And the same way I put all my buffs up here in this corner. And I think regularly it's over here, but my thought process was just that the minimap is already in this corner, so instead of like climbing this up, I have all this space over here. I might as well put it up here. And this is also just a little like pro tip. Right now I have all my buffs visible, but really none of these buffs you actually need to know. So if you click this little icon right here, this little arrow, they disappear, but they not all the buffs. By clicking this, only the buffs, I believe it's under 1 minute, will show up. So if I press my even might here, it's up. If I press my presence, it's up. And you see all these buffs is like, you know, the ones that you actually care about. It's the one that you actually want to track. So these is actually, by doing this, instead of, you know, you can't really like see them like this. You press this, it becomes less cluttered, and the more important buff, the more like right here in the moment that you need to see is here. So another really important part of my UI is my party frames. Not only have I, you know, as you can see, they're quite small, but I'll get to that part in just 1 second. Not only did I change it so it's not like an icon, but it's actually, you know, their class color, or these like, you know, raid style kind of party frames. The way to change your party frames is you go into your options, you go into interface, you scroll all the way to the bottom where you see raid frames here. And this is how they will look. The way that I have it on is that I, you know, display power bars, but just for the healer. What this actually does is it shows you your mana bar, and you don't really need to know about your warlock's mana or your hunter's focus regen. Like, you don't care about that, right? You only care about if the healer has mana. So checking this off is perfectly fine. I like to have, you know, the aggro highlight just so I can like clearly see if someone is like, you know, about to take damage. This is really good when of course, if you're tanking. Class colors. Without that, everyone would just look green, which terrible. You want to know like who is taking the damage, who needs help, who needs whatever, who needs the buff, and here it just makes perfect sense just to see, oh, okay, it's the paladin who is like half health or like what it is. This show debuffs is really important. And if you're new to dispelling, or you're trying out and you're actually not really sure what you can dispel, clicking this one will make it so it's only the things that you can dispel will like come up. The reason I don't have this clicked on is simply just because I like to see what's going on. I like to know what my tanks and healers are dealing with. I like to see, well, okay, if I have a DPS player who has a really nasty dot on them, well, I know now that, you know, the healer is going to focus on them, so I might have to, you know, use my own personal cooldowns at this moment. So I like to not have it on, but I really don't see. I really don't see the problem if you actually choose to have it on. It can like really, really beneficial. And now the other thing is, you know, the health percentage. This is super clear, super quick. As soon as I look onto it, it's like how much health people have. Of course, you can choose if you don't want anything on it. If that for some reason is clearer for you, you can have the health remaining and you can have the health lost, which right now it doesn't show anything. But if I take damage, you can see how much damage I've taken, right? But I like the health percentage. It's easy, it's clean, it's fair. Now the thing is, I actually have 3 different profiles. And what these profiles actually change is basically just the nameplate. So if I go on my protection warrior, I called it here, but if I go on my tank, they grew in size. A lot bigger, actually. And the reason for this is simply just because, again, we come back to the rule about the information. How much information do you need? Well, as a tank player, you actually quite need a lot of information. You need to know not only how much mana does the healer have, but you also need to like look at your team and very quickly find out how healthy your team is, like health-wise. Because if you go into the next poll, but everyone is like at 15 or 30% health, that's really not going to be that good. It's going to be like, you know, crucial. You're going to like struggle a little bit. So on my tank, I actually use a much bigger nameplates just so I can very quickly and easily like figure out who wants to, like, how my party is doing. And if I go on the other one, which is, you know, my healer one, I simply just move the party range just a little bit more. So when I'm in combat, you know, it's much easier to do the macro where I don't have to move that far up, you know, far away. And this is something that I, you know, really been enjoying. If I go back to the DPS players, it becomes much smaller because you don't need that much information. When I look over here, I can see how healthy, like, you know, how much health my tank has, for example, because the tank will always be the top one. So very quickly I can figure out, okay, we're going, but you don't need that much information. You don't need to see if the healer has that much mana. Like with this, I can still see it, of course, but it's not as important. So why take up that extra space? You know, when you make it smaller, you have so much more space that you can use for your, like, you know, clarity and visibility. So yeah, that's basically the WoW UI. I just use the regular, you know, the WoW UIs, but let's talk a little about the add-ons and the Weakauras that I'm using. So first of all, I just wanted to say that, like, I sometimes see the opinion that Weakauras or add-ons make the game worse, which is, in my opinion, like a weird way to look at it. Like, Weakauras is basically your best friend in this game. Weakauras provide an information for you that the game otherwise just really doesn't give you that clearly. So first of all, a class Weakaura. What you see right here. I use Luxtus, I think his name is. Amazing guy, amazing creator with like these Weakauras. I use his class of the Weakauras for every single class and spec that I play. I think this is super clear. It always highlights all the important stuff. But yeah, you don't actually need to use his if there's others that you prefer. There are always tons of these class Weakauras, and you can use anyone. I would really try out everyone, like see which one you like the most. But for me, it's this one I enjoy. And the great thing about these Weakauras, this class Weakaura, is, as I mentioned before, this actually makes it so my eyes can stay around this little square that I mentioned before. Like, I don't have to, instead of having to look all the way down, I have this right here, which highlights all the most important abilities for me. And you can see when I start using stuff, that they go all go on cooldown, and you can actually see the seconds of them, when they will come back. And you have all these the cast time as well, how far you on, all this. It just makes the game so much easier, and it makes it so I can keep my eyes around here and I can see what's going on. I can have my eyes on the targets, I can keep my eye on myself, I can see the swirlies. And it is something that it takes a little bit to get used to. I know multiple of my friends who have told them to download Weakauras and stuff like that, that they will say that, oh yeah, but I'm still looking at my action bars, and that has multiple times led to death. And it's all about getting used to it. That's basically it. With all of these UI changes that you might do, every single one of them will take some time getting used to, especially if you haven't done it before and you have years of practice on looking at your action bars. Then it will definitely take some time, but it's worth the time. So please be uncomfortable for a few hours, maybe a day or two. Please be uncomfortable with it, because you'll benefit so much from it. Now, this is not the only Weakaura I use. Oh, by the way, yeah, if you want to do what I'm doing right here, where it's hidden but only goes in combat, what you need to do is click your Weakaura, you go on, you find it right here, and then you go on load, and right here you check this off. So you can see now it's not here, and if I go and click this, it's gone, and it will only show up in combat. The Dragonflight dungeons, which is just this Weakover pack, will come up with this, and you see all these big icons. Usually it's just one icon at a time. And this will tell you, as well as the charge right here. This is basically a must-have if you're pushing Mythic. It will show you what you need to know, like every single time. It will show you the tank mechanics, as well as the different mechanics in the mobs. It'll tell you, what's gonna happen, who's targeted it. Everything you need to know is like right in this pack, right here, this one. I also use something like this one, right here. So what it is, it's basically, it's so simple, but it's just my trinket that I have down here. Without this one, without this Weakover, in order to, I found myself very often kind of forgetting to press it, or forgetting that I had it, and I used it in the wrong times, or sometimes I thought I was clicking, but then it didn't go through and stuff like that. So right here, all it basically is just, it shows me that I have it off cooldown right now. So if I press it, you see that it starts the duration. I can see how long the duration is. And you see when it's running out here, it's just going to show me how long do I have until it's back up. So having this trinket Weakover right here actually helps me, instead of having to look all the way down here at my action bars, keeping my eyes away from what's going on in the combat. I have it right here next to me. So I can always just very quickly check out how long it is before my trinket is up. And you can basically do this with any trinket or whatever. You just go to Waggo, the website, and you just type in whatever you want to find out. The next one here, of course, I use damage meters. But again, just like my nameplates, the kind of meters that I use kind of differs from what role I'm playing. And again, back to the whole golden rule, what kind of information do you need? So here I'm playing, as a DPS player, so I'm interested in seeing how much damage am I doing in the individual pool at that moment. And then I also like to see the dynamic overall damage, right? How am I faring up, against everyone? But if I'm, playing as a tank, I might be interested in seeing, how much damage taking am I getting? Especially if the season is new and the dungeon pool is new, I like to see, what is doing so much damage. You can also look at buff up time, or healing taking, see how much or damage prevented, seeing how good I am. And as well, if you're playing a healer, you might have healing done. In my experience, I have seen people who have 4 to 5, maybe even 6 of these damage meters all lined up. And you can definitely make them smaller and do everything, but I actually prefer just having 2, and then if I need something, I can very quickly click away and find it. It kind of goes back to the whole thing of keeping it simple while maintaining the information that you need. So I want to highlight 2 add-ons here with through some gameplay specific. If you look at the party frames right now, you can see that there's a lot of different icons, and that is of course Omnicd, which will track your party members' cooldowns. As an augmentation evoker, this is hugely important. I talked to this in my previous video, how I need to use my cooldowns in relationship to my other DPSers. But this is just a really great way to know what's going on, and again, it's one of those ways it gives you information that you need. And you, as a tank or a healer, you might not want to focus on the damage cooldowns. Maybe you more want to focus on their defensive. So if you're a healer, you can check up on do they have defensives? Do I need to really emphasize my own healing here? And you can easily go through the options in that add-on and just quickly figure out how you want to do it and what you want to track. You can choose specific cooldowns. And I honestly think right here, when looking back at this footage, that I'm tracking too much, because it is looking really, really crowded actually. So I might actually go back after this, publishing this video, and actually take some of it off, because do I really need to know if my healer has all his blessing of his sacrifice as an augmentation evoker? I don't think I need that. So yeah, definitely this is also the feedback to myself. be a little bit more critical of what information you take in, because this is actually taking up a lot of screen, but it is super helpful and super necessary. Now this next clip right here really highlights the strength of having a good plater profile. And plater is of course the add-on that changes the nameplates of the mobs. You can see right here, I have a plater profile where mobs have different colors. And if you've done Freehold, you know that there are 2 specific really nasty casters in this mob, in this phase. And if you look at the plater profile right here, I've highlighted them in different colors, meaning they become much easier to see, much clearer to see in all this like messiness of all these mobs. If everything was just the same color, well then really good luck trying to find the right mob. Right here, like with my plater profile, I use Quasis, who is a fellow YouTube content creator, absolutely amazing creator. He does some fantastic tips and tricks. He's a tank YouTuber, but has really universal, really good profile tips. And then he also makes a really good plater profile where, well, not only are the bad like casts, like the mobs who have a dangerous cast highlighted, but also stuff like, you know, mobs who have a frontal, or mobs who are enraging, and like all this kind of stuff. Having a good plater profile really puts you far ahead, because it makes you easily target what needs to be targeted. So there you have it. That's how I created my UI. That's my thought process. It's all about keeping it simple and being quite critical and thinking about what is the information you want out of like UI, and then make it in a way so you can easily access that information without being like completely like overclouded. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope that it helped you in any form of way. If you have any questions, please comment away, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.